I want you guys to confirm if Mwalimu is audible.
Okay.
Okay, so basically we can pick it up. Believing that Mwalimu is very audible. So first of all, welcome to our first class of that is a public finance and taxation, of course, this semester, semester 1, 2024, right? So you'll find that looking at public finance and taxation, one thing with this unit is that it is a very dynamic unit. A lot of things, basically, you'll find that they always tend to change. So it will always be very appropriate for us to always update basically our knowledge when it comes to matters with basically taxation. So introducing tax, you'll find that the best and the most important thing anytime we'll be looking at tax, you'll find that this is a very practical unit. And not only practical, but if you're having a very clear knowledge of our public finance and taxation, more so when it comes to taxation, you can literally use this knowledge to make money, right? You can use the knowledge of taxation to make money. That's a good thing with taxation. So it will be very ideal and very important that once we are introducing basically this concept, I just want you guys to approach it with what? With an open mind. With a mind that this is purely for practice. As much as the exam is very important, but you'll find that this concept will also help you a lot when it comes to matters with what? To do the practical environment. So mentioning that, we start officially by looking at public finance and taxation. So you'll find that we are looking at two sections, right? We're looking at two sections. There's a section of our public finance, and there is a section of taxation. There are two sections, section of public finance and section of taxation. That is what will make it more interesting, right? So mentioning that, you'll find that by the time we are through with this syllabus, we will be expected to have covered almost 13 good topics. You'll be expected to have covered 13 topics. So doing this as our norm and our tradition, we'll always first of all start by looking at the overview of what will be expected to cover. After looking at this overview, of course, we'll look at the best strategy that you can use to clear all these things early in advance. And also, in addition to that, looking at the key areas what you must always tend to have at our fingertips anytime you're talking about what? Public finance and taxation. So I'm mentioning that in this case, we'll introduce this by looking at the overview. Remember, I've shared, of course, the course outline in our group, which I believe all of us, you do have that course outline. So to do this, we are going to start basically with our topic number 1. This is, in our case, Mwalimu will refer to this as section 1. This is for the purpose of us to understand the concept clearly. I'm going to refer to this as section 1. And what will this entail? Section 1 will entail the component to do with public finance. Section 1 will entail the concept of public finance. In your syllabus, I know it has not been categorized as section, but for the purpose of us to understand it clearly, we're saying that at this point, Mwalimu is going to categorize it in this case. We'll be having like section 1. So the question will be, what will section 1 entails? What will section 1 entails? So section 1, it will entail the following topics, only 7 topics, whereby you'll be expected to cover, say, topic number 1. In this case, we will be expected to understand introduction to public financial management, introduction to public financial management. Introduction to public financial management. This is topic number 1 that we will be expected to cover. I know at this point, basically, majority of you have heard of fiscal policy, talk about monetary policy. Majority of you have heard of maybe the concept of what to do with public debt, public revenue. So all these elements, we'll be covering them majorly on this topic number 1, whereby we'll just be introduced to public financial management. Just as the word suggests, we want to learn and understand how the government basically collects its revenue and how it uses the same revenue. And also at this point, remember, whenever we normally tend to do our budgets and we realize that I'm having deficit, of course, we are going to extend our hands to our neighbors and request for what? For debts. So also at this point, you'll find that it will be important for us to learn and understand the concept of debt when it comes to basically matters to do with what? Public finance. So you'll find that, as I had mentioned earlier on, it is not only for exams, because whatever that you're talking about here, it is literally, basically practical knowledge that we'll be looking at, because these are things that affect us all through. When we read about public debt, every country has to have its form of aspect of the concept of public financial management. So you'll find that it is a very interesting area. And as I had mentioned, that it is not only for exams, as much as it is important for exams, but the knowledge that you're going to acquire through this process, it will be a golden knowledge, which you can use it anywhere. So in addition to that, talk about topic number 2. What will we be expected to cover in topic number 2? Topic number 2, we will be expected basically to understand the relationship, talk about the relationship between national and county government. The relationship between national and county government. In relation to what? Not politics, but matters to do with what? On budget and economic matters. On budget and economic matters. On budget and economic matters. You see? So at this point, more so in Kenya, right? In Kenya, today, we understand that we normally tend to have counties. So at this point, it will be important and very, very important basically for us to understand and be able to figure out what is the relationship between the national and county government, what we'll be looking at. So you'll find that, again, this should be very, very key and very important concept, again, for practice. So looking at that case, talk about topic number 2. What will you be expected to cover in topic number 3? Topic number 3, my good student, it is now the oversight. Talk about the concept to do with what? Oversight. Oversight of public finance management. Oversight of public finance management. Why should we be having an oversight? Because at this point, these are funds, right? We've collected these funds from maybe revenue. We've collected these funds from debt that we've maybe collected from both internal and external. So it will be important that there should be parties which they should be responsible in making sure that these resources are utilized as per their purposes. Because if at all you are to leave it just like that, you'll find that there'll be very high probability of these resources to be misappropriated. Unfortunately, in Kenya, in Africa, and other parts of the world, of course, there is cancer, right? There is cancer known as corruption, whereby in this case, there is improper utilization of public resources. So regardless of whether we're having oversight, all of us, basically, we all understand basically the work of the Senate, right? We have various committees which are set there to oversight some of these items. But at the end of the day, what is the results? You'll find that there is cancer, right? This cancer known as corruption that is causing a lot of havoc in all these public, basically talk about public entities. So you'll find that at this point, then it will be upon us to understand the role of each and every person in relation to this county and national government, the persons who are supposed to be responsible in making sure that there is proper utilization of resources. So you'll find that, as I mentioned, the concept of public finance literally covered our day-to-day activities. So the moment you're able to understand it, and you'll find it to be very, very interesting, by the way, the whole bit of public finance, it is always very interesting because these are things that basically affects us directly. So you'll find it to be very, very interesting as we proceed. The other bit here, which will also be very important for us, at this point, we'll be expected to understand the procurement in public entities. Topic number 4. In this case, we are talking about procurement in public entities. Procurement, talk about procurement in public entities, right? So at this point, these are where we normally tend to talk about tenders, right? I remember during those period back in when we were having basically the aspect of COVID-19, right? A person was just passing along cancer and he gets a tender. Yeah, how funny that was, right? So you'll find that in this case, whenever we're talking about the concept of procurement in public entities, I know majority of you are maybe working, and some of you literally you are practicing. So you'll find that the question is, do you guys know the best procedure on how to apply for government tenders? Do you have that structure? Do you know the process of you applying for these public tenders, government tenders? As much as you know very well that there should be someone whom you know probably inside, right? Talk about insiders. But it is important that you should be able to have this knowledge to the point that if at all you want to apply for a tender in a government institution, you should be having these procedures right? So in this case, these are what we'll be looking at here in procurement in public entities. And at this point, you'll find that these are one key area that basically corruption is very rampant, right? More so never hear about tenders, where you'll find that you're talking about maybe talk about that pen that you're using to write the Mwalimu Zaringo's notes. In fact, that pen probably you'll purchase it at maybe, if at all you are in Kenya, talk about maybe 50 shillings. But in this case, you'll find that because I'm applying for a government tender, and there's someone who must eat something there, you'll find that the same pen, you can purchase it up to 10,000. It doesn't make sense. And at times, unfortunately, that is what is happening basically in our environment. You'll find that, look at this range. That pen that you purchased at 50 shillings, the same pen, you'll find that the government is purchasing it at 10,000 shillings. Yeah, because it's someone who is going to it. Oh, of course, basically there's that concept of to charge on delay. But as much as to charge on delay, 10,000, basically these are very this price actually, it is you can't say it is abnormal price, right? But as of the end of the day, what are we going to do? We are the ones who elected them, right? We are the ones who elected them. So we have still have the power, of course, of selecting the best, of course, leaders that you want. But ideally, these are what we'll be looking at here under the concept of what? The procurement in public entities. So after looking at that bit, up to now, my good students, you realize that all these concepts up to that point, they're literally very practical. And these are some of the things that we normally tend to experience them in our day-to-day activities, So after we have talked of that, that should take us to point number 5. This is our topic number 5. Topic number 5 concept is all about basically some of you are enjoying by the way such activities, which normally refer to them as what? The aspect of PPP, P, or rather the public-private partnership, public-private partnership, right? Public-private partnership. I know majority of you basically, you are like at least you've enjoyed some of the projects that literally have come through public-private partnership. So what is this concept entail, or rather what will public-private partnerships agreement entail? Public-private partnership, or we're talking about the agreements. So the whole idea under this topic, you'll find that we're having, of course, private developers, or rather I'm having basically private entities. The private entities, of course, they have the muscle, they have the skills, and they have the resources to provide certain basically maybe talk about certain services. So what will happen, in this case, you'll find that the word public represents the government. The word public in this context represents the government. So what will happen in this case, the government will want to deliver on a certain project. Let's take a very good example of maybe talk about expressway here in Nairobi, talk about Thika Superhighway, talk about the SGR that we are all familiar with. In Rwanda, I know very well that there are so many projects which have been undertaken through public-private partnership. So you'll find that in this case, what will happen, the government will form this coalition or agreement with private investors. So that what will happen is that the private investors are going to deliver, or they are going basically to manage certain projects on behalf of the government, in the sense that the government will agree to pay them, of course, at a later date, or better still, the government will agree with these private developers that, you know what, if this project will be generating revenue, we are going to give you basically that right to collect the sum to the point that you are going to pay yourselves, plus, of course, the profit that you'll be having. After that, you're going to leave these projects to us. You see? So you'll find that currently, majority of basically the projects that you are enjoying, basically, they are as a result of this arrangement. They are as a result of this arrangement. So you'll also find that, again, this is something that affects us directly. This is something that basically we are going to do what? we are going to experience it, right? So after looking at that case, that should take us to another key area now. This is the topic number 6. Topic number 6 basically will be expected to cover what we are referring to as a public debt management. Talk about public debt management. These are public debt management. Public debt management. So this is what we will be expected to cover in topic number 6. So we've agreed and said that for the purpose of our understanding, we are going to divide this unit into 2. The first component, we refer to it as public finance, which we have taken it to be part of our section 1, of which section 1 will be expected to cover these 6 topics. Again, they are theory, but very important. Why is Mwalimu saying this is very important? Take, for example, a good case of a last sitting paper and the papers that have always been tested. Take, for example, this case. I want you guys basically to check this one out. Check this one out. This is a last sitting paper, so that you should be able to understand why Mwalimu is saying that as much as they are theory, but they are very, very important. You see? In this case, this is a literally last sitting paper, right? December 2023. You'll find that the first question number 1 is literally concept to do what? Public finance. 20 good marks. The whole of question number 1 is about public finance. It's about public finance. You see? The whole 20 marks. Public finance. Then, if at all you can also scroll on the same, you'll find that I'm also having basically, this is just a moment here. Where's that question? Again, you'll also realize that if at all you proceed, if at all you scroll, you'll find that also partly part 2, question number 2 is partly what? The concept of public finance. In this case, if you do a summary basically in this paper, you'll find that public finance only entails up to 25%. That is theory. Public finance only entails up to 20%. These are literally marks that can take you places you've never seen before, right? These are literally marks that can take you places you've never seen before. These are marks that can take you places you've never seen before. So make sure that at least you have this. And the beauty part is, as much as they are theory, they're always very enjoyable, by the way. Public finance is a very enjoyable, very enjoyable area. So of course, we'll be covering that as we continue. So let us proceed to basically section 2. Section 2 in our case of this analysis, section number 2 in our case for the purpose of this class, which we've termed it as section 2. Section 2 will be having now what? Taxation. Section 2, we will be talking of taxation. Okay? Talk about taxation. These are what we'll be having in section 2, taxation. And you will realize that taxation is a very dynamic area. And this is what you must be able to understand. You see, like for example, last year we had a lot of students doing tax, right? And we gave them very good notes. But this semester, students who are doing 2024, majority of the notes that we gave last semester, they are irrelevant. Why? They are irrelevant. This is the reason. You'll find that for 2023, we were using basically the concept of tax and regulations as per the Act of 2022, which ideally everything that we taught last year, basically they were purely based on the tax and the amendments of 2022. Now what will happen, whatever that you are going to teach in 2024 when it comes to taxation, it should be as per the Act this Act, Finance Act, and other amendments that were done in 2023. And that's why Mwalimu is saying that whichever notes that I used last semester, as much as part of them they'll be relevant, but you'll find that a huge chunk will be irrelevant. Because when we are talking about employment income literally, a lot has changed. Whenever we're talking about some elements to do with holding taxes, some elements a lot have changed. Whenever we're talking about the concepts to do with the aspects that are vertible, whenever we're talking about the VAT, for VAT literally, a lot of things have changed. When we're talking about turnover tax, my good students, a lot of things have changed. Whenever we're talking about NHIF and SF, a lot of things have literally changed. You see? So that's why I'm saying that, unfortunately, for those who got the notes for last semester, for this time round, you'll find that a bit or majority of that will be irrelevant, because from this period, or rather 2024, we'll be using the changes and amendments as per what? Finance Act 2023. And that's why Mwalimu is saying that taxation is very dynamic. Taxation is very dynamic. It's not like FM, it's not like a FAR, it is not like basically the other case. But this one is very, very dynamic, because you will find that there are a lot of things that have changed, and they always tend to change. They are not constant, right? So make sure that you have this in mind. So looking at taxation, you'll find that taxation will start then from topic number basically 7. Topic number 7. These are where taxation will start. And at this point, you'll be expected to cover the concept of us being introduced to the world of tax, talk about introduction to taxation, us being introduced to the world of tax, introduction to taxation. That will be our first item. What about topic number 8? Remember, like introduction is just a matter of us understanding tax. I know majority of us we've heard of tax. If I may ask, maybe in this class now, I just want a good student, because this is not something that is new. I want a good student. Abdi today, if you're told, if this student who is doing basically catering, I'm not saying that catering is bad, but assuming this student who is doing catering is approaching you, or she has approached you and asked, Abdi, I want you to give me the definition of tax. What is tax? What can you say, Abdi? It's not the first time that you're coming across the term tax. I'm very sure it's not the first time that we're coming across what? Across the term tax. So my question is, if you're asked, basically, tax, define the term tax, what can you say? Abdi, we are on you. Or someone to assist Abdi? Anne, Catherine, Evans, Jael, Jennifer, Peter, anyone can assist Abdi? Lisa? Yes, Evans?
Let me try.
Yes, please.
Tax is a compulsory payment made by citizens to the state without necessarily getting direct benefit from it.
I love that definition. Yes. That is very good, Evans. I love that definition. That is very good. So Evans is telling us that here, first of all, we are underlining the word compulsory. In this case, imagine if at all you're given an option of you can either pay or not to pay VAT. Can you imagine that world? That you're having an option of either to pay VAT or not to pay VAT? Or can you imagine that world whereby you're having an option of either to pay or not to pay? Just imagine that world. How will it be, right? So at this point, you'll find that tax, as what we've been told, basically, key element is always what? Compulsory. And I want us to correct this term from the word go. Anytime we are in tax, we don't know about citizens. tax will be referring to these two parties. Will be referring to either residents or taxpayers. Oyugi, Evans, you should correct that. In tax, we don't know who citizens are, but rather we'll be using residents and what? Taxpayers. We'll be using mostly residents and taxpayers. We don't know who citizens are. So in this case, you'll find that when you'll be looking at basically introduction to taxation, it will always be about us dealing or analyzing the concept to do with us being introduced to the world of tax. After that bit, that should take us to topic number 8. Topic number 8, my good students then will be expected to cover taxation of income. Taxation of income. And when you're looking at taxation of income, is a very wide area. When you're looking about taxation of income, is a very wide area. And this will form the longest topic in our syllabus. This will be the longest topic in our syllabus. That will be the longest topic in our syllabus. Topic number 8 will be the longest topic in our syllabus. And also, not only longest, but very important topic, both in practice and also for the purpose of exams. Because you realize on the computation part, you realize that basically on the computation part, majority of the questions that will be tested, they come from what? They come from topic number 8. Majority of the questions that will be tested for basically computation, they literally come from topic number 8. So making it one of the most important topics that we'll be having. So after that, that should take us to this analysis of topic number 9. Topic number 9 will be covering what you are, this is basically talk about investment allowances. Investment allowances. Investment allowances. What we normally refer to as capital allowances. Capital allowances. Remember also in capital allowances, there are some few items which have changed, which basically Finance Act touched on some few items in investment allowances. And that's why I've mentioned that. Kindly, even for those probably who are doing their own studies somewhere, wherever they are doing their own studies, make sure that whatever that you're having is updated. I'm giving you this caveat. I remember me talking about this, of course, also last semester when things had changed. I remember me talking about this last semester when things had changed, whereby I was telling you guys that, you know what, with these amendments, majority of the students will be using the outdated notes. Things won't go well on their end. Because at this point, you'll find that a student is very good. This student basically has prepared to the best that he can. Unfortunately, whichever notes that they were using, they were updated. So going to the exams, you are very sure with what you are doing. But unfortunately, whatever that you are using was outdated. So you'll find that you'll end up not passing the exams. It's not that you don't know, simply because you are not aware of things that had changed. Simply because you are not aware of the amendments that had changed. So in this case, you'll find that you'll end up messing up that question without you knowing. So it is important that you guys should have this knowledge that things have changed more so in tax, and you should be updated. You should be updated. You should be updated. So looking at topic number 9, that is, of course, investment allowances, or rather, what you are referring to as the capital allowances. That should take us to basically topic number 10. What will we be expected to cover in topic number 10, my good students? Topic number 10, this is what we normally refer to as what? As administration of income tax procedures. Administration of income tax procedures. Also, basically, majority of this part is literally theory And at this point, you'll find that whatever that will be expected to understand here are simply matters to do with the voluntary tax disclosure programs, talk about application of ICT in tax. All of us, we're having the KRA pins. All of us will be expected to file our returns before June. So in this case, where are we going to file our returns? We're going to use iTax. iTax is an application of ICT in tax, you see. So you'll find that this area is always about basically the procedures that you normally tend to use when it comes to matters to do with income tax. Right now, or today, we are talking about items, right? We're talking about items. Each and every business, both individual and the individuals, at least they are expected to comply with items. So these are some of the major changes when it comes to ICT in taxation. So that is what will be expected to cover in topic number 10. Talk about topic number 11. Topic number 11, my good students, will be expected to cover a very interesting area which affects all of us, and this is what? Administration of value added tax. Administration of value added tax, VAT. Administration of value added tax. All of us, at least you're having an idea, or at least you have heard of what VAT is. Wherever that you are, at least you've heard of what VAT is. So, and at this point again, remember last time I taught my students for who are doing taxation, the aspects of we're having basically some items which were zero rated. We're having some items basically which were exempt. But this year, I'm going to teach you guys different thing. Why? Because as per the Finance Act 2023, there are some items which were basically exempt. They have been taken to taxable. There are some items basically which were taxable. Now they are exempt. So you'll find that it will be very important. This one I'm telling you for free. It will be very important that you guys, you should be updated with these changes. Look at the changes. This change has affected us basically in taxation of income. The same change has affected us basically in terms of basically in capital allowances. The same change has literally affected us in terms of what? Income tax procedures. Now we'll be talking about the concepts of digital asset tax, which was not there before. But of course, for this period, it's going to affect us. Look at VAT. VAT, basically, there are some changes which were made, which will affect us directly. So imagine it will be very unfortunate for this student. This student will get the notes for last semester or whichever period the notes were prepared. So he'll be having the notes. As much as probably the procedure of working them would be the same. But what about these rates? What about these items that, as per the previous notes, they were zero rated? But maybe now they are exempt, or maybe they are standard. What about those items? And for exam purposes, you'll find that whichever item that will be tested, it is just for you to select this item. Is it zero rated? Is it exempt? Or is it standard rated? So that's why I'm really insisting. You might wonder why is Mwalimu insisting this much. Previously, tax was not basically a paper that a lot of students were failing. But why is it nowadays, majorly from 2020? Why is it that a lot of students are failing tax? It's not that they don't know. It is only that at times, either we can, as they normally tend to say that, of course, ignorance is not a defense in law, but you'll find that they are ignorant, probably because they think that they have notes. So they want to study the notes. Yeah, it'll be very good in terms of public finance and introduction. What about the rest? You should think about it, guys. You should think about it. You should think about it. So this is about, talk about this is VAT. After VAT, this should take us to basically topic number 12 here. This should take us to topic number 12. What will you be expected to cover in topic number 12? This is to do with what? Custom taxes and excise taxes. Custom taxes, and basically excise taxes. This is another area. I'll just take a very good example. Like previously, you find that, of course, if you are importing an item, of course, you are paying duty based on what? Based on the weight. But what about now? If at all you're importing something, you will be paying basically based on what? The value of the item, right? So in this case, as per the notes that we had basically last period, or rather last semester, just the other day, we were looking at it based on whatever that was there in the Finance Act 2022. But today in 2024, we'll be looking at the Finance Act 2023, which at this point, basically on excise, if at all I want to determine maybe excise duty, or maybe I want to determine a duty on item, I won't base it on the weight, but rather we'll be using what? We'll be using the value of the goods. Again, a direct change that will affect the area of custom taxes and excise taxes. As much as it's a bit of a theoretical, but you never know. You might be surprised with a question and you'll be like, where is this question coming from? Like I remember there was a question in August 2023. At this point, I guided my students and they were like, Mwalimu, this computation is not in basically, it is not basically in our syllabus. We have only theory, but here we are. Let me show you this question. The concept of capital gain tax. You'll be like, Mwalimu, you know, you're just talking. But look at this case. Look at this case. This was, I think this was August 2023. Let me check that question. This was August 2023. I was just telling my students that, you know, you guys, you should be very familiar with these things. Like I'm giving you and you're like, Mwalimu, this thing basically in our syllabus, we've been given basically the theory part, but the notes we are not given. The good thing is that when they were in an examination, they were like, Mwalimu Kwani, did you know that this thing was to come? No, it is only that you are looking at it on a practical angle. Look at this case. If you check in your syllabus, and I'm very sure with whichever note that you're using, guys, you won't see this as a computation. Where is this bit? I think it was August. Let me just scroll it down here. It was August 2023. If it was not August, then it was yeah, you see this question, April 2022. You see, there's this bit of to do with the concept of capital gain tax. You see, in your books, guys, you're having the theory component. Then come to exam, you're given calculations. So you'll be like, we've never seen this item, but literally it is in your syllabus. Yes, majority will be looking at it as theory. But look at these marks. You're given 6 marks. 6 marks, if you are having 46%, these 6 marks can take you that place of past 50. So it is important for us. And that's why I'm also saying that, you see this area of custom, I know majority of you're like, it is a theory only. But don't be surprised, right? Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if you get a question for computation, however little marks it will be if you get a question for computation in relation to that. So be very keen. Be very, very keen. Then this should take us basically to topic number 13, which is the longest, which is the last topic, not the longest. In this case, we'll be talking about miscellaneous. Talk about miscellaneous taxes. Talk about miscellaneous taxes here. Talk about miscellaneous fees and levies. Miscellaneous fees and levies. Miscellaneous fees and levies. This is topic number 13. Miscellaneous fees and levies. So at this point, of course, we normally tend to talk about SGR, whereby you talk about railway development levy, right? We'll be talking about the concept, maybe to do the concept to do what? Catering levy. For those who are in a hospitality industry, when Mwalimu is talking about catering levy, I know you know what Mwalimu is talking about, right? So you'll find that these are basically under miscellaneous fees and levies. So this is what will be expected to cover in tax. You can clearly see we're looking at 13 good topics. Now, the question is, with these 3 months that we're having for this semester, are we able to clear all these 13 topics? We find time to do our revision. I wish I had my previous students here who are doing basically these tasks last semester. Fortunately that majority of them, they passed, right? So in this case, it is very possible. We are looking at 13 good topics. 13 good topics. We are looking at 3 months. We must be smart and we must have a very good strategy. And this is a strategy that Mwalimu is going to share with us. In this event, remember, we're looking at it practical. These are facts that we are having 13 good topics. And without good strategy, 13 good topics, clearing them within 3 months, it will be a challenge. And that's why this is a strategy that we normally tend to use in clearing all these things in advance. Number one, we are going to look at where are we going to start from. In this case, you'll find that we'll be analyzing some of the key concepts. Starting with public finance, what are we going to do? We won't be writing notes for public finance. Why is Mwalimu saying that we'll not be writing the notes for public finance? Simply because in this case, what Mwalimu has done, Mwalimu has literally, basically given us this concept. Remember the notes that I've shared? Let me show you guys. I've shared the notes in our group. I've literally shared the notes in our group, so we don't need to worry. There is note that we've shared in the group. Just a moment here. Where is I think I'd share the notes in the group. I just want to show you now, just a moment. And I believe all of us, if basically we are in the group, we must be having the notes. We must be having the notes. So I'm checking this just right now. I think I'd share them today. Just a moment here. I've shared with you guys very good notes. Very good notes that will cover the whole of public finance, right? Very good notes that will cover the whole of public finance, which I believe all of us, we do have these notes. These are the notes, right? These are literally the notes for public finance. These are the notes for public finance. I've given you all these notes for public finance, which basically they are very brief. They are very, very brief, which you can literally be able to understand them very, very well. So we have all these notes for public finance, which I've literally shared with you guys. And that is what? Part, or rather section 1. So how are we going to go about it? You see with the notes, what Mwalimu will be doing, like what we are going to do today. We'll be looking at these notes, basically after you've gone through them and studied them, we'll be using this strategy. Like topic number 1, we go through whatever that you guys, you'll have read through the notes. Then in that case, we look at some questions in our past papers. You'll find that going through that topic, say topic number 1, as you're working out what? As you're working out computation. We do theory as we're working out computation. Maybe in a class, the first 30 minutes, we dedicate that to the theory component, discussing every element because you're having the notes. We discuss each and every element. Then we go to what? We go to computation. The same case, you'll find that by the time we are through, even within 3 weeks, you'll have covered everything in theory as well as proceeding with our computation, almost towards capital allowances. So that is what we'll be doing. So literally, we'll be looking at partly theory as we are covering the area to do what? The area to do with tax. So that will be the first strategy. The second strategy, you'll find that given this, right? Given this taxation, we are not going to follow it the way it is here in our syllabus. This will be your strategy. Number one, what you're going to cover, it will be important for us to understand the concept to do with what? Taxation. So that will be your number one. That will be our number one. Number two, in this case, we'll find that we can't handle taxation of income well if we are not good in investment allowances. You can't handle taxation of income well if you're not good with investment allowances. So this will be our number two. The aspect to do the capital allowance, which will take us very basically like 2 sessions max. Then after we are done with that, that is where we are going to proceed to the longest topic here, which is literally what? Taxation of income, where we have employment income, where we have business income. And the business income, we'll be talking of partnership, we'll be talking of sole proprietorship, we'll be talking of basically talk about limited company. So all of that, we're going to cover it at that point, which we said it is the longest topic. After that, we'll proceed to the concept to do with VAT. This will be on number 4. In terms of computation, we'll proceed to do VAT. So that after you're done with VAT, you'll find that combining these two would be very easy. This is now topic number, or rather our number 5 task. Administrative of income tax procedures. This one will be doing it through our block revision. This one will be doing it through our block revision as you are handling also what? As you are handling the questions. So this will be our, and this is a these are basically the method, and basically find the strategy that we've used ever since we were given 3 or 3.5 months semester, and this strategy has always worked. This strategy has always worked, so long as you guys will also be willing to cooperate with Mwalimu. And how will you cooperate with Mwalimu? You're going to cooperate with Mwalimu by making sure that at least at this point, it is all of us to sacrifice. It is all of us to sacrifice. By sacrificing, Mwalimu means that make sure that you get time to go through those notes. If you haven't received these notes, just let Mwalimu know that you've not received these notes. Mwalimu will be willing to share with you these notes for public finance. Just make sure that you have these notes right, so that if you go through the notes, you'll find that it will be very easy for Mwalimu. It will be very, very easy for Mwalimu to do what? To clear all these items in advance. It will be very easy for Mwalimu to clear all these items in advance. And I'm really insisting on that because I know it is with your cooperation that will determine how fast we are going to clear this, because you've seen you're looking at 13 good topics. Without good strategy, we'll just be like walking in the mud without moving. But with good strategy, we'll be moving on a tarmac very swiftly, very swiftly. So to that point, do we have any question? Anne, any question? Any question, Anne? Bernard? Abdi? Catherine? Evans? Any question? I'm having 2 Evans. Evans and Gasa. Evans, so you get any question? Jael, Faro, Guhad, Jennifer, Lisa, Timo, Peter, Savia, Yvonne, all the rest. Do you have any question?
Oh, yes, I had a concern.
Yes, please.
I've not been added to the groups.
I've not been added to the group. Let me share with you the link.
Okay.
Right. So, mentioning that, then we can start this officially. We've said that tax is a very practical unit. And our forecast, basically, we are going to approach tax with an open mind, with a mind that we are literally doing this for knowledge. We are literally doing this for knowledge. And that's the approach that we're going to take in tax, that, you know what, we are doing this for knowledge. We are doing this for knowledge. So after looking at that, then let me erase this bit. Let me erase this bit so that you can look at it as we dissect these concepts clearly. So of course, we are going to start with public finance. I've literally shared the notes. So we are starting with that topic number 1. We'll be looking at it as we are breaking it down pole as we proceed. So starting with section 1, which we're referring to it as a public finance. So in this case, we are talking of a public finance. So we are having public finance here. Public finance. Because we say that at this point, I'll be looking at it in 2 perspectives. I'll be looking at it in relation to basically public finance, and talk about the other key area, which is what? Which is taxation. So talking of that, this should take us to introduction to public financial management. Topic 1, introduction to public financial management. Introduction to public financial management. Public financial management. We have the notes. So I'll be explaining the concepts as we proceed, as we are looking at that. Before we proceed, let me give you like 5 minutes to make sure that you've collected the notes. Let me give you 5 minutes to make sure that you've collected the notes. I'm giving you 5 minutes to make sure that you're having the notes. 5 minutes to make sure that you're having these notes as you're taking that break. Okay, I believe those who didn't have the notes, at least they have the notes now. I've given you time basically to make sure that at least you're having the notes. So, introducing public finance. Remember what Mwalimu would be giving us, basically just a summary of the notes. I know as much as on the notes I've given you the detailed bit of it, but looking at our explanation, I'll be giving you in brief form. So if you feel like the brief form of notes will assist you, definitely you can put it down so that at least you'll supplement with what you are having on the notes. So it is important, first of all, to have an idea of what public finance is. Public finance definition. So anytime my good students, whenever we're talking about public finance, these are what you've agreed. We said in this context of public finance, public will be representing the term government. What you should be able to understand. So on this context, you will find that whenever we'll be talking about public, basically finance, I'll be looking at how the government will tend to collect its revenue. Okay? We'll be looking at how the government will tend to collect its revenue. Why are we collecting basically our revenue? We are collecting our revenue for the purpose of what? Understanding the expenditures. And whenever we are having deficit, what are we going to do? We are going to borrow. Collection of revenue, this is public revenue. Looking at our debt, these are public expenditure. And focusing on the debt in the event that you're having what? A deficit. After all this, what will happen? Allow to basically make sure that these resources are used properly. They are not misappropriated. So what are we going to introduce? We are going to have what we normally refer to as what? Financial administration here. I'll be having what we're referring to what? As administration, financial administration. Look at this, look at this flow. I want to understand this flow very well. The government has collected revenue from the sources that we'll be looking at. After collecting this revenue, why are we collecting this revenue? We are collecting this revenue because they are expenditures that we need to take care of. In the event that we have realized that this revenue that we've collected, they won't be sufficient to meet the expenditures, what are we going to do? That is where the concept of debt will come in play. And to make sure that all these activities are managed properly, I should be looking at a person or body that should make sure that all these things are managed as per the intended purposes. And therefore, that's why you're saying we'll be having what? Financial administration. Imagine that is public finance. Imagine that is public finance. So briefly, for those who are putting it down, we can just mention a very brief statement introducing public finance. We can only say that public finance refers to the study. Public finance refers to the study and management of government revenue. Public finance refers to the study and management of government revenue, expenditures, and debt. Expenditures and debt. Expenditure and debts. Expenditure and debts. Imagine, just like that. And you realize that now, because you're looking at these three main elements, the whole concept up to topic number 6 will be evolving around this. Revenue, how to collect, how to manage those charged with the oversight. Expenditure, how do we spend whatever that we've collected? Who are the persons who are going to be charged with the mandate of making sure that the expenditures are managed well? Basically, how are we going to raise these sources of financing this expenditure? Spending. I want to have maybe a particular project being done. Should I involve public-private partnership, or should we do it on our own? In this case, you'll find it to be at that point. Debt. The aspect of public, basically debt management. In this case, I'm looking at internal, we are looking at external sources. Therefore, which one is more favorable to us? Who are the persons who are going to be charged with the mandate of making sure that these debt are utilized appropriately? You see, financial administration, the oversights, right? Senator parliamentary oversight committees, talk about National Assembly oversight committees. That is public finance. As simple as that. That is public finance. You realize that majority of the items that we'll be covering in public finance, they'll be rotating. Yeah, they'll be rotating around that area. They'll be rotating around this area. So that is a very brief definition of what public finance entails. It's not basically a hard component. It's not basically a hard component. So after that, what are the components of public finance? I'm going to repeat the exact things. The components of public finance. Components of public finance. What are the components? There's nothing difficult here. There's nothing difficult here. Components of public finance. I've already given you this. I've already given you this. Of course, number one component you're here about what? The aspect to do with what? Aspect to do with public revenue. Public revenue. If I may ask, all of us, I know you must give me this answer. What is the main source of public revenue? Any volunteer? Let me not point anyone. Any volunteer?
Taxes.
Tax, right? Taxes. Yes. These are basically the main source whereby the government will tend to collect its revenue. So in this case, you'll find that whenever we'll be looking at government or other components of public finance, among them would be the government revenue. This is literally the sources of funds for the government. At this point, you're looking at main sources or other sources of funds to the government. Sources of funds to the government. Sources of funds to the government. These are what you're referring to as basically public revenue. Example of these sources you've given me, we're hearing about taxes. Talk about fees. Today, if basically you are just walking around the streets of Nairobi and probably unakutana na 𝐿𝑉𝐴𝑐𝑗𝑜, or rather you're meeting basically these county askaris, they are like, you've done a certain mistake, give us something, or rather maybe you'll be given a fine when they're serious. So you'll find that at the end of the day, that is also another source. I've been taken to court. I'm told to pay some fine for me to be released. That is basically aspect of what? Sources of public revenue. So all this, we just want to look at the sources of funds to the government. As simple as that. These are what you're referring to as public revenue, or rather government revenue. Talk about number two, public expenditures. What about public expenditures here? What about public expenditures? So you'll find that anytime you're talking about public expenditure, it's a very simple item. It's just allocation of these resources to public goods and services. This is what you normally refer to as what? As public, or rather as public expenditure. The allocation of funds for public goods and services. Allocation of funds. These are literally allocation of funds, right? Very simple. Allocation of funds. Allocation of funds for public goods and services. For public goods and services. Take a good example. I want someone to give me a good example of a public good or service. Give me a very good example of public service. And you can give us something. What is the example if you ask? What is the example of public good? What can you say? Peter want to say something.
Construction of roads, hospitals, government services, salaries.
Very good. Yeah, very good. As simple as that. We're looking at administrative expenses. These public servants must be paid. Administrative expenses. Administrative expenses, right? We are talking about education. We normally tend to hear that there's an amount that basically has been allocated to education. Junior secondary school, basically aspects of secondary school, primary, all these are services. Talk about basically healthcare. Talk about healthcare. Infrastructure, right? These are the expenditures that we are literally looking at whenever we are saying that basically we are talking of what? Whenever we are talking of a basically aspect to do with what? With public expenditure. Then what will happen? In the event that I've realized that my expenditure has exceeded whatever that we've collected, we are going to introduce now a key element that we're referring to as what? As public debt. Public debt. We're going to introduce an item that we are referring to as public debt. So, public debt, you'll find that in this case, these are just resources that you're going basically to do what? To borrow. In the event to do what? In the event, these are resources that we're going, of course, to borrow to make sure that we facilitated our public expenditure. And that's why you normally tend to hear that basically, as much as you're collecting or having a lot of debts, majority of these debts, basically, they are directed to revenue expenditures. Revenue expenditures are literally the ones that we are just paying basically on a monthly basis, but not in relation to what? Development expenditures. So you'll find that that is a very worse scenario that we are always in a sense that I know very well we want to basically want to finance these expenditures. But why should we borrow to finance the revenue expenditure? Debt should be borrowed, or rather we should collect debt majorly for development. But in our case, unfortunately, we normally tend to collect this debt for what? We normally tend to collect this debt basically to finance our revenue expenditure, right? So simply, when we are talking about public debt, ideally, we normally tend to say that government may borrow money to finance projects or cover budget deficit. Yeah? Government may borrow. These are just borrow. The government may borrow to finance what? Government may borrow basically to finance projects or cover budget deficits. Or cover budget deficits. You see? So these are literally what you are looking at as some of the components of basically the components of public finance. As simple as that. As simple as that. And again, when we be asked of basically the scope, right? When we be asked of the scope of public finance, this is now the scope. Nothing much. Public finance is a very simple concept and also very practical concept. You don't need to struggle, guys, on understanding public finance. It is as simple as the way Mwalimu is saying. It is as simple as the way Mwalimu is saying. You don't need to struggle that public finance is hard. No. Using the notes that I've shared with you, you just be very good to go. Then, in that case, after I have collected my revenue, we've seen our expenditures, we've realized that maybe we need to borrow. Key element that will come here in play is what we're referring to as financial administration. So we are having, number 4, financial administration. Talk about financial administration. Financial administration here. What is this financial administration, my good students? Remember, we've literally collected our revenue. We've seen how expenditures looks like. at this point, as at the end of the day, we've also decided to borrow. So who will be charged with the responsibility of making sure that all these resources that we have, they have literally managed well? This is now what we'll be talking about, what? Financial administration. So therefore, what is financial administration? You'll find that the efficient management of government finances, including accounting, auditing, in this case, talk about to make sure that there's that efficiency of utilization of what? Of public resources. To make sure that there's that efficient utilization of public resources. Right? The aspect to do with financial administration. So you'll find that in this case, we don't have much, by the way. We don't have much when it comes to matters to do with scope. We don't have much when it comes to matters to do with scope. So you'll find that basically on whatever that I've literally shared with you guys, you will realize that we've gone into details. We've gone into details explaining all of these items basically into details, including what? Including the aspect to do with public debt, where public debt, you'll find that we'll be looking at it in two perspectives. We're talking about the internal sources and external sources. By the way, let me ask this question. Guys are going to see how guys are going to respond. And kindly, if I ask you a question, you respond. If I ask you a question, you respond. Because as I've always said that, as accountants, you should also make sure that you sharpen your public speaking skills. Your public speaking confidence should be top-notch. These are what will differentiate you with other accountants. You should not just be a person in the office. Make sure that your public speaking confidence is enhanced. So if I ask you a question, and that's the reason why I've given you the right to unmute, you answer or you ask a question, then you mute. That is the essence of being, of us allowing you to unmute your mic. Yeah? In our class, actually, all our classes, I normally advocate for verbal communication other than chatting. So let me ask this question. Timothy, are you getting Mwalimu?
Yeah.
What is a Eurobond? Patapotea. Timo, don't Google. Give me Eurobond.
According to me,
Uh-huh.
Eurobond was kind of a debt that was I think like a bond as usual, it was a redeemable one that should be redeemed, I guess, this year. It's maturing this year, if I'm not wrong. So it's basically kind of a debt that you pay the interest until the date of maturity, where you have to pay the principal amount. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe I've gone now the question too far. But at least, as much as you've given us a lot of corners, you've given us an idea more, which is good. Because we find that ideally, at this point, we normally tend to talk about bond as well as the bill. These are treasury. You've heard of treasury bills. You've heard of basically treasury bonds. So in this case, that is according to Timo. He has literally tried. Evans, what is the Eurobond? Don't Google. Evans Oyugi, what is a Eurobond? Don't Google. Mwalimu will know if you Google. Let us listen to Evans. Evans, talk to us. What is Eurobond? If at all this student of hospitality is approaching you because you are a student of finance, he or she is asking you to give him or her the definition for Eurobond, what are you going to say? Evans, you are Googling. I'm seeing Evans, you are trying to Google what Eurobond is. Jael, what is a Eurobond? Jael, what is a Eurobond? Talk to us. Tell us what a Eurobond is. Someone. Anyone who is going to give us correct answer, Mwalimu is having a dinner for that person.
Better send it on my phone because I already know it.
Yeah, I should forward in advance.
In advance, indeed.
Savia, you've Googled, right?
No.
Savia, you've
No,
Googled.
sir.
Huh? Okay, talk to us. What is a Eurobond? Talk to us.
Okay, the little that I know about it, it is a debt that is not in a home currency. Like it is given in a foreign currency, maybe sort of US dollars. Besides, we use francs, but they can give us that debt in US dollars. Yeah, that's the little I can say.
Very good. Savia, you've Googled. You've taken that a lot of time. You have to answer. You Google that. You want to take my dinner for free? Huh? Savia, take my dinner for free. Yeah, actually, it's true. It's very correct. You'll find that basically these are bonds that have been issued on a different denomination other than the home currency. Like for example, what basically Kenya did, right? They issued a bond, of course, to the public for them to purchase, but they issued it at a different denomination. So you'll find that Savia, yeah, I'm going to agree, but that dinner I'm going to cut it by half. But that is true. So you'll find that the concept of a bond and bill is always very interesting. And the good thing is that once you've gone through the notes that Mwalimu has shared with us, you'll find it to be very, very easy. The notes that Mwalimu has shared with us, you'll find I've literally explained the whole of these concepts very clearly. And by then, at least, meaning that since morning, no one has gone through the notes that I shared in the morning in our groups. No one has literally gone through the notes that I shared with you in the group. That is very bad. Yeah, that is very bad. Make sure that at least you must have you go through the notes. So these are all bit to do with scope, and of course the components of public finance and the definition. So after looking at that case, we proceed to the next item. Unless there's a question here. Not unless there's a question here. Not unless there's a question here. So that should take us to, of course, we'll be analyzing it here more. The aspect to do with what? The sources of public finance in Kenya. Or rather just sources of public finance. It could be anywhere. Sources of public finance, right? So we are having here sources of public finance. Sources of public finance. We have various sources, by the way. We have various sources of public finance. You have various sources of public finance. Let me see. Let me see. Who can give us this? Who can give us this? Who can give us this? Remember, like at this point, we are looking at which area, other than whatever that you said debt. I want someone to give us which other areas can we get our funds from, other than borrowing and taxes. Which other areas can we get our funds from, other than borrowing and taxes? Which other areas? I want someone to try. Yvonne, you've not talked to us. Yvonne, you've not talked to us.
So I can also try.
Mwalimu,
Yes, please.
what of grants?
What of?
Grants.
Grant.
Yes.
That is good. Granted aids. Grant and aids. That is very good. Another source.
This
I know we have them. Yes, Pharaoh?
The government can also issue treasury bills.
The government can also issue?
The treasury bills.
The aspect of that is a form of debt, but it's okay. That's a form of debt. So I'd mentioned that we should not talk of debt, but that's okay. So it's giving us treasury bills and of course bonds. Remember, we'll be looking at the difference between bills and bonds. That is correct. Another one. Yes, Peter?
Business, from profit from business.
Like, for example, be specific.
Business, government companies that can generate profit.
Very good. You'll find that maybe at this point, whatever that will happen, of course, the government can lease, right? These are basically talk about business. The government can lease the lands. Like after leasing, of course, I'll be collecting revenue on that, basically leases. Talk about basically rent. Some government, or rather government, at times you'll find that they're having some certain government buildings which they have rented out. So they'll be collecting revenue on that. Yes, that is the thing. That's the spirit, guys, that I want you guys to have. Be open-minded. That is very good. I want you guys to be very open-minded like that. Another point, kindly. We're looking at sources. We're looking at sources. We're looking at sources.
What about if I talk of sale of government property?
Sale of government property. That is a point. Correct. That is business. You'll find that at times you'll find that the government might tend to auction some of their properties, and in that case, that's a source of revenue. That's a source of revenue. So in this case, you realize that the secret with the public finance is you put your mind on the practical field. Don't struggle whenever you're having such a question, maybe sources of public finance. Don't struggle to recall what you study. In that case, you'll be wasting a lot of time. All you need to do is to be an open-minded student, right? Just try to think critically outside the box. And trust you me, you'll be having a lot of points. Because here, as I'd mentioned, other than taxes, of course, taxes are the main sources of revenue. So you'll find that we have a lot of other areas. We have a lot of other sources which we can basically generate our revenue from. We have so many sources which you can consider in generating basically our revenue. So sources of public finance in this case, Molimu even won't give us because I know we have them. Literally, if I told you to look at around, we have so many points. So the next item would be for us to understand basically objectives, right? Objectives of Public Financial Management Act. Objectives of Public Financial Management Act. Objectives of Public Financial Management Act. Of course, the one that was passed in 2012. So these are what we'll be looking at next. So I want you guys to go through the notes that Molimu has shared with us. Going through the notes, it will give us basically a very, very wider understanding of what public finance entails. So that in our tomorrow's class, what we are going to do, we are going to catch up with objectives, with clear objectives, and we now introduce a bit of what? A bit of taxation. Because once we are done with the objective, it will be like one element will be through that topic, number one. Then we do what? We introduce taxation, introduction to taxation, which we are going to cover it, then we'll come back to theory. So that's how we'll be doing it. And you realize before you know, we'll have cleared all these items. So to that point, any question? Any question? Any question that you want to raise? Great. If you don't have any question, Mwalimu will want to wish us a very good night. Remember, tomorrow, same time, same place, we'll be looking at public finance and taxation. So you guys, see you in our next class. For those who are joining, financial management, let us meet in a few. For those who are joining financial management, let us meet basically in a few. So to that point, you guys have a good night. See you then. Bye-bye.